Hello, this is High Templar with a new episode of my Total War Warhammer DLC speculation video, and today we'll be talking about the High Elf campaign. So this is the first part of the two parts of the High Elves, and this is actually continuation of my Expansion 1 video, in which I'm covering all the races and lands that will be added with the Expansion 1 for the Total War Warhammer that will come somewhere in 2018 probably, or the late 2017. So the High Elves are arguably the most powerful race in the Total War Warhammer, in the Warhammer tabletop. However, not that many people will argue that. They are very powerful indeed. They have all the dragons, all the interesting mounts, they have lots of variety. They are still elves, so they are squishy. They only have as much health, but they are very, very powerful indeed. And let's just talk about firstly when they live, and then go further into the history and everything else. Those guys live in the island of Utlan, which is the counterpart of the Atlantis in the Warhammer universe. And it's divided into 5 inner kingdoms. So inside the Mount of Anoli, on the coast of the Inner Sea, we have 5 inner kingdoms. And then outside of the Mountains of Anoli, we have the outer kingdoms. And there is only one way to get into the Inner Sea, and this is this passage. And there is Lothran city, very important city that covers all the trade with the outer world, because High Elves are pretty much isolationists. Similar as the Wood Elves, obviously. And how can you depict those guys? Well, also there is a very important island right here. This is the island here. This is the island of the dead, which is very important in the history of the elves. And the world itself, really. There is a vortex here that is channeling the forces of chaos. So it literally sucks up all the chaos magic into this vortex. That's why it's Island of the Dead, right? And it weakens the chaos all around the world. So should anyone mess with the vortex, it will pretty much be the end of the world. Although there was an instance when the High Elves and the Dwarves has defeated the chaos, but that was really staving off the inevitable, and the vortex helped to stabilize that. So right now the elves literally save the world, and they won't really allow you to forget that. They are very arrogant race when it comes to how you depict average elf. However, their leader right now, the Phoenix King, Finubar, Seafarer, he actually traveled quite a lot, and that's why he was chosen for the Phoenix King, which is electorate position. Unlike the Everqueen, his wife, who is actually hereditary. So the first daughter of the previous Everqueen will become the next Everqueen. And what is very important here is this guy actually knows that the humans do not live in the shacks and the mood houses. They actually have a culture. So yeah, this is something and he is one of the few elves that actually knows that. So this is very good. He will probably not ignore everyone and help them if the need arises. And like I've mentioned before, the king position is actually electorate, so there are princes of the 10 kingdoms that are gathering and picking who will be the next Phoenix King. And then he has to go through pretty hardcore ritual, going in the flames. I will not dwell into that, it's kind of complex, but but this is something that makes you a king. You need to pass the test of the gods, go through the flames to be a Phoenix King. That's why the name, actually. And because of that, there are many creatures like phoenixes, like fire phoenixes or cold phoenixes, who will be serving the High Elves. Actually, many creatures will serve the High Elves. That includes lots of dragons, but I will go further into that. So this island is pretty big. If you look at the world, and this is the old world that we know, right? This is the Utland. And as you can see from this image, it's kinda like Britannia and Empire, although minus the inner sea, obviously. And this is the other map, the different map, that shows pretty much the same thing, right? Unfortunately, this was data mined, and while some people argue that this will be the map that we'll see, this is the map that we have right now. And if you've seen my videos on the speculation before, you would notice that when you are loading the game, any campaign map, you have this huge swaths of nothing to the east, to the south, and to the west. Unfortunately, it makes perfect sense for this map to look exactly like it. I mean, some people argue, challenge it, that it's not what it will be, but like I said, it makes perfect sense, because if you would have a map like that, and you have that much of this map to the west, you would have ocean here, and maybe a small part of the Utland. Even if you put Utland right here, you will still have only Utland and nothing else from here. That map makes sense because they can put some of Nagrod with the Dark Elves, some of Lizardmen, and also the Utland with the High Elves. And this is, you know, something that you have to live with. No other way. But it's still the home of the elves will still have a portion of like size of the Britannia, really. So it's not that small. And we will probably have at least, we might have 10 provinces, but I don't think we'll have actually 10 provinces. I think it will have like 4 provinces with few settlements here. I would be very nicely. I would be surprised, but that would be a nice surprise if they would actually make 10 separate provinces, 5 for inner and 5 for outer kingdoms. So there you go. This is where we will be. We will have to travel through the sea to get to the Utland. And that's why we'll probably have more of the more ships and the naval battles with the first expansion. In the High Elves are actually, they do pop up in different places of the old world to fight people. Even though they are isolationists, they fought in quite a number of wars. They actually, in the ancient times, waged a war against the dwarves, which was pretty unfortunate, because it was only their arrogance, really, that made this war to happen. Also, they didn't want to admit that the Dark Elves are actually not the High Elves, because the Dark Elves were attacking the dwarves. It's called the War of the Bird or War of the Vengeance, depending on, you know, which side you ask. The High Elves still have pretty cool suits, but that's not something you would actually see in a game. Probably this is some of the artist concepts and something you could see on the Warhammer or online. But they do have pretty nice toys like this. They also use hogs like the Wood Elves. There is lots of common between the Wood Elves and the High Elves. That's why I'm making this video after the Wood Elves was released. And they do use a lot of the same things because they are the same. Although the Wood Elves lives in the Atlantic for a very long time, they are pretty much the elves that fled the Utlan when their situation was very, very bad, and they were sheltered by the spirits of the forest. So, going back, this is actually flying chariot pulled by the Hawk, and pretty amazing, I would say. Also flying missiles, and I will cover them in the army video, obviously. But you can see that we have some pretty cool things with the High Elves. What is perhaps the most defining characteristic of the High Elves army is the dragons, lots of them. They have 3 different kinds of dragons, and there would be the Sun Dragons, the Moon Dragons, and the Star Dragons. The first ones being the youngest and the least powerful. In the tabletop Warhammer, they are, I believe, costing around 235, so this is like 50 more points than the Griffin. But they are still dragons, you know? They're still very, very powerful. But the Star Dragons are so powerful that they will eclipse anything we've seen before in the Total War Warhammer. Because the Forest Dragons are actually like the mid-dragons, somewhere between the Sun Dragons and arguably, somewhere between Sun Dragons and the Moon Dragons. But the Star Dragons are even more powerful. And if you can mount somebody, even if it's only a Lord, on the Sun Dragon, that would be pretty powerful indeed. And as you can see, I have lots of these dragons images here because, you know, dragons, they are very cool. What will be the campaign objectives of those guys? Well, most likely they will have to stave off some Dark Elf invasion, because the Dark Elves really have it for the High Elves. They believe that Utlan is their land, and they were thrown away from it, that the Malaket is the true Phoenix King, and he should be in charge. So, and the Black Dragons are actually the dragons that went with the Dark Elves away from their brood. So, all of these creatures want to take Utlan for themselves, and I believe the focus of this campaign at the beginning would be to stave off everything that comes from the Dark Elves. And there will be possibly some other opponents, but the main opponent for this will be Chaos. Also, as you can see, the style for the High Elves, they are very ornate, and the armors and everything else are very, you know, as you can see, over the top, I would say. This is for example, this is normal horse mount. If you wouldn't, it's hard to notice that like you might think it's like a creature with the horns or something. No, it's just a normal horse. It's just how it looks like when the High Elves dress it. The other thing that the High Elves have are also, when it comes to the mounts, are the white lions. Some bigger depiction from the other games. So they do actually ride white lions, and what would be amazing to see those guys in actual combat. Very, very cool. Many cool cavalry options will come in the first expansion. We'll have cold ones. We will have, well, different reptiles, really different lizards, and then we have lions. Pretty cool indeed. We will also have Pegasus, obviously, because, you know, why not? The Dark Elves would have Dark Pegasus, those guys will have normal Pegasus. Pretty cool indeed. And they would be playing similarly in many ways as the Wood Elves, because, you know, the core would be those spear infantry for the Wood Elves, armor piercing, anti-large, with huge shields, very, very powerful, but few in numbers and quite squishy. How would I imagine their buildings? Well, there will be obviously separate building for dragons, and possibly on the tier 4 you will have Sun Dragons. I don't think it will be the tier 3. And then we'll have the Moon Dragons. If we will have separate dragons, but I would like to have that. And possibly Star Dragons will be only available for the generals at the level of, I don't know, like 20 at least? Because, for example, you can have... I don't remember what level you have to get a Chaos Dragon in the campaign for the Chaos Generals, but I do believe you will have to pay for it pretty dearly, and there will probably be separate buildings for those lions. Pretty simple building for all the cavalry for the Wood Elves, for the High Elves, and they have lots of cav, including the Illyrian Riders, who will be missile cav, but then you will have the Knights and everything else. And possibly at least 2 buildings for the infantry for the elves, and possibly also one for the Hawk Chariots and one for the or the Pegasi, or that will be the one insane. Hard to say really, but we know that there will be lots of trading for those guys. And they will have diplomatic options of talking to people. However, they should have at least some partial, like the bias against the other guys. People will not really like them because they are very, very arrogant, and that should be reflected somehow. I'm not sure if it will, but it should be. As for the special mechanics for those guys, like every race have one, the Wood Elves has lots of special mechanics. I'm not sure if we will see anything very powerful in those guys. Maybe we will see some kind of council type mechanics when there will be Phoenix King and the Queen. Obviously the leader for the faction will be the Finubar Seafarer, and I will propose some other legendary lords in the army video. But they will have, I'm pretty sure they will have something that will add to their magic capabilities, because High Elves are very powerful mages, and the only one in the entire world who can be more powerful is Slann. And maybe we will see some new cool magic, because with the Slann and the Dark Elves and the High Elves, there is possibility of adding some quite cool spells to the game itself. And this is it. I hope you like it. If you did, press like, comment if you will, and see my other videos. In Total War Warhammer, I do mechanics and speculation and DLC analysis videos, but I also do Let's Plays in Total War series and other games. Thank you for watching, and see you later.